Okay, here we go. There is a ghost in my house. Okay. So there is a... I'm the real Randy Chavez here, coming at you with some more Pokemon data. This is a Pokemon video. Let me know what you think of the... Anyway, jumping right into it, we have a Dark Hypno First Edition PSA 10 selling for $205. We have a Rocket Sneak Attack First Edition PSA 9 sell for $53, 53. We had a... something First Edition PSA 9... Oh, okay, no, I'm sorry. Gengar Fossil. This is a special case. Normally this sells for $230 to $330. You know, the First Edition PSA 9 Gengar from the Fossil set, Hollow. But because this was a British auction, and it was a private listing on top of that, this one sold for $424. Maybe it was someone in the British country over there, and they decided, you know what, I don't want to pay for shipping, and they say, like, they cut them a deal saying, okay, I'll pay this price, but please don't charge me $40 shipping or whatever it is. Either way, that is a new record price point for the 9, whether real or not. Couldn't tell for any of the feedback, because again, private listing. So outside of that, we had a Feraligatr, First Edition PSA 9, number 4, so the one that is more common, the one that is less rare, it's easier to grade. PSA 9, that sold for $305. I sold mine for like $235 like 2-3 weeks ago. The growth is insane. Meganium, First Edition PSA 9, number 11, so same thing, the more common one, the less rare, the one that is easier to grade, or I'm sorry, the more common, and it is not as rare, and it is easier to grade. That sold for $305. Oh no, I'm sorry, $255. So the Feraligatr sold for $305, the Meganium sold for $205. About 2 weeks ago, the Feraligatr number 5 was selling for $305, and the Meganium number 10, you know, the ones that are more rare, those are selling for these prices. So the ones that are less rare are climbing. So the ones that are more rare are definitely going to climb. You haven't seen that yet with the Feraligatr because there hasn't been a sale for that in a while for number 5, but that is coming. Like I said, that PSA 10, I have a deal worked out with for about $5K. If I can swing it, hopefully I can. I don't know. Vaporeon Goldstar. This one, it didn't have a... It was PSA case because it was signed by Fukada. It was authentic, but it just labeled it as authentic. The person probably was like, you know what, it's probably going to get a 6 or a 7, because I looked at it and that's what I would have given it. Like, I have it signed, just put it as authentic, and it sold for, I didn't write it down. I'm so sorry, guys. I think that sold for about $302, and that is great. For something that's a PSA 6 or a 7, I think that's good. I don't know how much Fukada, how much that influenced it. Maybe a 6 would only warrant $100, and maybe it's, you know, 3 times as valuable because of the signature. I don't know. Generally, the only ones that I do know, the price range gate is Arita. Arita, basically, any card that he signs, whatever that card is valued without him signing, if it's signed, you double it. For Ken Sugimori, any card that has his signature on it, whatever that card is worth, add a 0 to it, because it is 10 times as valuable with his signature. With Fukada, I don't know. We'll see as this goes on. We shall keep you posted. Pikachu, First Edition PSA 8.5, sold for $152. I don't know how many 8.5s there are. I don't know how many 9s there are. But even if, you know, by this math, 8.5s, $152, 9s, $200, I think that's a little undervalued, because the 10 is probably worth $3,500. Because again, a guy I met on Instagram had a 10, was offered $3K for it. He's like, nah, I'm not going to take it. So Mudkip Goldstar from the EX Team Rocket Returns got PSA 7. That sold for $385. Now, I'm just going to take a minute to be able to go through this here. There are 215 PSA 7 through 10 copies of that Mudkip. So that's not the PSA 10 version. It's not this 7 through 10. All of them bunched together is 215 copies. And 35 of those copies are PSA 10. Now, moving on to, let's say that's $2,000 for that PSA 10. We have a Torchic. Torchic only has 15 PSA 10 copies, and 197 copies total from 7 to 10. So the Torchic is a lot harder to grade, and the reason we know this is not just a one-off. Maybe not many people have graded Torchic as opposed to Mudkip. They've all been graded the same: Torchic, Mudkip, and Trico, who has 38 PSA 10 copies and 220 copies total. So all of these are within 23 copies from 7 to 10. Again, I don't really count from 6 and below, but from PSA 7 to PSA 10, They're all within 23 copies, 197 to 220, and Torchic is just harder to grade because you see that they've all been graded the same amount, but because it's less than half, it is more than 2 times harder to grade, and that is why you have a bit of a price difference. Why Mudkip will probably only get a couple grand, where Torchic will probably get 5. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we have a Dark Raichu, first edition PSA 10. That sold for $690. That is the record price point for that Dark Raichu from the Rocket set. I have one that'll come back probably by the end of this year. A Dark Raichu as well, but basically a near mint complete Rocket set, near mint to mint. Those are very good. There's a couple of them that I think will get 10s. And PSA is so backed up, so they probably have probably a lot of these are just going like they're just looking to get all the product out because they are so backed up. Outside of that, outside of the Dark Raichu, we have a Togetic from Neo Genesis, first edition PSA 10, sold for $580. Metagross Goldstar PSA 8 from EX Delta Species, sold for $380. I will talk more about that one later. T18 Typhlosion, number 18, the one that is not as rare. It is more common, it's easier to grade. First edition PSA 9 sold for $710. Got a Wigglytuff, first edition PSA 9 from Jungle, that sold $127. We had a Japanese Master Ball. All right, so this one is a red and green gift set from 1998. You can only buy by just purchasing that the pack's called a red and green gift set. And there's a couple cool cards in there, Master Ball being one of them. There's, I think, 50 or 70 PSA 10 copies that honestly should be worth several $100s. They're not. They're probably only worth like 100, 125. This dude said, like, put this card on auction. Same thing as what I said the other day. He put a reserve on it. Someone bid $44 on it. That was the final bid. And I think that's a fair price. But he's like, no, I'm just going to, reserve's not met. I'm just going to relist this. And now the relisting is $44, the starting bid. Like, dude, just fucking list it. Like, if your auction is going to keep ending and people are trying to, I can get this, and then it's just not. I mean, people can list things for whatever they want. I'm just saying, like, try to be fair to the buyers. And if I don't like reserve listings, because if you are going, I don't have reserve listings on any of mine. There's a couple of cards that I paid, or I sold it for maybe about what I paid for it, and it was definitely worth more. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that, I didn't get as much as I wanted for this. Let me cancel this auction. Let me take this down. Let me relist it. Because I think that's the wrong thing to do. That's just me. Either way, we had a Zapdos from the Fossil set. There's 2 of them. One sold for $611, and one sold like 10 minutes ago for $521. First edition PSA 10. Legendary Birds, I think those are they should be worth $1,000. I'll tell you why they're not. It's because they are, Articuno I think is, because, I'll tell you in a second. Just go over Moltres, first edition PSA 10, that sold for $690. And there was a first edition PSA 9 Moltres that sold for $219. And the Articuno first edition PSA 9 sold for $280. So the 9 of the Articuno is definitely outselling the Moltres. Makes sense, because as far as PSA 10 copies go, Zapdos and Moltres are around the same. Zapdos has 269 PSA 10 copies. Moltres has 229 PSA 10 copies. So that's why Moltres got a little bit of a premium. So about $80 to $170 higher than the Zapdos, because there's not as many of them available. And those anywhere between $500 and $700. Those are price points right now. Again, Legendary Birds from Fossil set. That's the 3rd set ever. I think that should be $1,000. But again, they're not, because there's so many of them. $229, $269. Legendary Birds. The reason why Articuno I think is worth $1,000 right now is because there's only 123 PSA 10 copies. You could probably get Articuno anywhere between $600 and $800 right now, first edition PSA 10. But I think it is minimum worth $1,000 because of the math and the statistics and the ratio on which these are predicated on. Anyway, moving past that, Dark Houndoom, first edition PSA 10. I love this card so much. Houndoom is such a beast. I've gone on rants of it before with Karen. Sold for $810. Great. I think it's a record price point. I don't know how many PSA 10s, PSA 9s there are. But that's such a cool card. I don't see it go on sale very often. So even though there could be 200 PSA 10 copies, I don't think there is because Neo Destiny doesn't have a lot of those. It's probably less than half of that. But even, it doesn't matter what the pop is. If you can't find those cards consistently, that price is going to go up. If you only see that every 2 months, every couple months, that price is going to go up. So after that, we had a Dark Feraligatr. First edition PSA 10, sell for $7.49. I still think that is undervalued. So undervalued. There's a 51 or 61 PSA 10 copies. That is undervalued. So undervalued. Starter is badass. I love him. I definitely do have to check that because if there's 61 PSA 10 copies of Dark Feraligatr, and then I have to see how many Dark Houndooms are because I think Dark Feraligatr should be worth more than Dark Houndoom. That is just my opinion. That just through the artwork. Again, there could be maybe 50 PSA 10 copies of Dark Houndoom, in which case that price should definitely be higher. But special place in my heart for Feraligatr. This was a gym challenge lot that I just saw. It's first edition, PSA 10, all Koga's Pokemons. Koga's Tangela, Koga's Ekans, and Koga's Pidgey. And because Pidgey number 4, there's 2 Pidgeys. This one was Pidgey number 49, and the lot, all 3 of them sold for $107. So figure about $35.68 a per card. We're seeing a lot of growth with those. There are still some cards for Gym Challenge that you can get for under $20. Blaine's Rhyhorn and Blaine's Mankey, you can get for like $12, $15. That's less than the cost it is to grade. It's fantastic. Speaking of which, as far as low graded WotC cards, for many of these, and we'll be very, very early to the game, extraordinarily early, because I remember when this guy S.M. Pratt, Scott Pratt, S.M. Pratt on YouTube, looking up, he's great. He's the prince of Pokemon. Pokemon collecting, that is. And he said a few years ago, is just like, I see people base set, you know, that Poliwags and Machops and Ponytas is just like, I'm seeing these for under $40. And this is the base set. This is a set that everyone wants. And at the time, I was like, yeah, but there's like 300 something Poliwags or 600 something Squirtles. Like, there's so many. Like, why are you buying all of these? And he just said because they're worth it. Again, this is a very young hobby, 20-something years old, very, very young. He says once people realize that the base set, which is what everyone wants, if they just want, let's say, the Charizard or the trophy card, like if they just want that first set because it's first, and you know, first to the party, you know, usually gets the bread. He said like these cards are going to be worth so much one day, and I was like, they're common cards, but now, you know, as he was buying all of them before, you can't find any PSA 10 first edition base set card for under $40. If they are, then buy them. And now he says, and again, this is about 2 years ago that he said that, but now he says, you know, 2 years later, it's like any of these cards under $100 should not be under $100. First edition PSA 10 base set common cards should not be under $100. And I'm thinking like, there's still definitely cards that I could find for well under $100. Now, obviously, you're gonna have, you know, a bunch of Pidgeys, a bunch of Rattatas, and you know, maybe those will kind of stay. But you know, you have Caterpie, even as last year, because it's hard to grade for whatever reason, has a minimum price tag of like $130. You know, for Caterpie. So already he's kind of right in some things, and even some things that not right about yet, he will be. And I think the same for, I'm going to say Neo Genesis, because that is the first set of the second generation. I love Gym Challenge. That is my favorite set. That set will always have a special place in my heart. I think Neo Genesis will have that, people wanting that set, as opposed to Gym Challenge. Again, that's just the entire set in general. As we go for Hollows, you know, Gym Challenge has that Blaine's Charizard. It's so badass. Love talking about that. Anyway, moving past that, we had a Gengar Goldstar from the EX Delta species, PSA 10, and there was a bunch of these. So there was 1, 2, 3. There was the 6th bid down was $1,700. All right, this is a Gengar PSA 10 now. There was 2 bids at $2,000, 1 bid at $2,200, second bid at $2,850, and the winning bid of $2,900. Why is this important? Because Kyogre has about 55 PSA 10s in the pop report, whereas Groudon has 58 PSA 10s as well, and Metagross, the other big one in that EXL species, I told you I'd bring Metagross up, has only 41. So when I said before that Metagross, that PSA 8 sold for $380, let's do some math here. If the Groudon Kyogre are about the same, 55.80, and that sells for about $2,900, let's say $3,000, and the 9 is going to sell for let's say $700, $800. That Metagross PSA 8 at $380 is well priced right now. I don't think that's overpriced because, as far as Metagross, there's 68 PSA 8s. And there's only 40 and 45 PSA 8s for Kyogre and Groudon, respectively. So if you have a bunch of these cards that are, again, they'll have the out here 8, 9, 10, something that goes like that, the 10 is going to get a big premium. So I think that card is undervalued based on what the 8 is selling for. All right, so I'm doing it in reverse. That said with 10, okay, based on what the 8 is selling for, because there's a lot of them. There's 6. Again, it's not even a lot. It's a lot compared to the 9s and 10s, but there's 68 of them, 40, 45, and based on what that's selling for, I think these cards are very undervalued as well. The PSA 10, and if you want to talk about growth in Pokemon, the 10s are always going to grow first. Is there more room for the 8s and 7s to grow? Absolutely. You could have gotten a 7 last year of any first edition WotC card. I know this is Gold Stars, talk about Delta species, but you could have got those cards for $10, and now a lot of them you can't find for less than $30. So that's 200% growth, and I get it. 10 to 30, not really a lot, as opposed to talking about 1,000 to 3,000. But still, if you buy a bunch of them, you buy them in bulk, and you see those 7s, again, you'll make a lot of money. Same thing with the 10s. Those 10s, when they are bought, there's some that I buy for investment. There's some that I buy like the Dark Feraligatr because I think it's undervalued. But I bought 2 of them, first edition PSA 10. One I'm going to keep. I'm not selling that. And the other, eventually, I'm going to sell when it reaches maybe $1,500, $2,000. But a lot of these cards with 50-something or less than 50-something like Metagross PSA 10s, they're going into collections, and they're not being sold. So these Metagross, let's say if you have... And I'll bring Tesla into this because I am. There's 20% of Tesla shares that are that are held by insiders, by people like Elon Musk, people that own the company, and there's 55% of the rest of the shares are owned by a lot of other insurance companies, ETFs, whatever, and there's 50 million retail investors that would invest in Tesla once it hits the S&P 500. There's only 44 million shares out there. So at 44 million shares that are not owned by insiders and other ETFs and investors that have to hold them, then once that goes to S&P 500 and everyone wants a piece of it, there is 50 million retail investors and only 44 million shares available. So even if everyone just wants one, which they won't, they're going to want more. I have 20-something myself, shares of Tesla. There's not enough to go around. Now, the advantage that stocks have is that stocks are going to be able to say, okay, we could split the stock so that instead of this much, there's this much, but times 2, is usually what they would do. And I think it'd be really funny if it went to 840 and then he split it and then it's 420. I thought it'd be great. But if they're not going to split the stock, which some companies, most companies don't now. They used to all the time. Now they don't because it's considered prestigious to have that higher value. They're just going to issue more shares. They'll issue more shares. They'll raise money, and they will have that. They'll use that money to build another Gigafactory or Terrafactory. Where Pokemon does not have that option. If they're out of print, they're out of print. They're out of print, and none can be printed again. They're not going to print any again. The pop report might increase a little bit, like from 2000, let's say 16, 2018, the pop report increased for a bunch of these for like double. Like I remember even 2018, first edition PSA 10 Blaine's Charizard had like 150 PSA 10 copies. Now there's 279 PSA 10 copies. Same thing for a lot of these. Like a lot of the grading has already been done. You cannot find mint copies of these cards anymore that are raw. So these are going to grow very, very smallly, especially the 10s. Especially nowadays with PSA being so strict on grading, it is just not going to happen. So as more and more people get into the hobby, yeah, you're going to have your day, like stocks, you're going to have your day traders, people that are going to, buy, sell a few months later when it increased a couple $100. They're like, oh, all right, that's good. Made a nice 10% in a couple months, which is good, which is great. But a lot of these that are going into collections that you're just not going to see anymore, they go into collections and you're never seeing them again. They are people's, not just in Pokemon, but in cross collectors as well. People that collect Magic, or people that collect even coins. There's a guy called like Coin Rare or Coin Rare Coins and Metals that he sells these stuff, and these has cross collectors. Why you're seeing a lot of record prices with that Rare Coins and Metals guy is because a lot of his subscribers and followers on eBay, they're buying rare coins. They're buying old shit, expensive shit, and they're buying this stuff. They're buying Pokemon because it's just something to get into. They see the growth in it, but they're not selling. That will die with them. So not only people that are in the Pokemon hobby, but people outside that want to get in just because it's growth, it's hype. It is the fastest, highest grossing media marketing Pokemon. I completely messed that up. Media corporation in the world, and that's what's happening. You are not going to be able to get these cards consistently anymore. It's going to be a time, and kind of unfortunate that not everyone's going to be able to get into it, where you just can't get those PSA 10 copies. You just can't. You're going to see, obviously, see it with trophy cards already that are insane. Like my PSA 4 trophy Kangaskhan is 5 figures. PSA 4, that is like bottom of the barrel, 5 figures. And there's trophy cards that are worth 6 figures, 7 figures. There's people that will want it not because they like Pokemon, but because of the status. Rich people have this thing where they want it, they see it, they don't care what the price is, they don't care if they pay 10 times what the going rate is. If they want it, they get it. And that's hard for a collector. And again, a lot of serious collectors that love the product and love a piece of history, they're like, this piece I can't. It's priceless. The type of emotional value that is invaluable. And you're going to see that a lot of these PSA 10s that you're getting now for a couple grand it is a steal compared to what they'll be by 2030. And I know 10 years, long time. Pokemon's a young hobby. I know it's hard to talk about long-term growth with this. I put my book away. I'm not even done with the thing yet. It's hard to talk about long-term growth when it's such a young hobby, only a few decades old. But you have this... Everyone here that's listening to me that is under 30 years old, because I am as well, time is on your side. Everyone that's listening that's under 25 years, that's 20 years old, and there's like, oh man, you've been doing this for a long time. You're 29, like that seems old. And I don't know where the time went. I don't know where my 20s went. Yeah, I moved out when I was younger, and then I joined the military, and then I did that, and then I did a whole bunch of things. Time goes by quickly, but you will not believe. And yeah, if you're 19 or 15 or 20 years old, listen to this. 29, 40 seems old, but you don't realize how young you still feel. I still don't feel, I got a little with the knees and the hips and the back, but I still feel, when I'm sitting laying in bed, when I'm playing Pokemon, when I'm writing down this data and I look at these cards, I still feel young. I still feel like I'm 15 years old, and I was like, oh, these are cool, and I'm nerding out with my friends. I still feel that way. So time is on your side. You don't have to worry about saying like, oh, it's so far in the future. It is, but you have so many years to make mistakes and grow this. And I know I just went off on a complete tangent over here. Sorry, this video is getting so long. I'm almost done. What I sold, Lapras first edition PSA 9, $280. That's something that I told you guys months ago that was severely undervalued at 120, 130, 140. I was still buying. I doubled my investment on that one card in inside of 2 months. So that's I have like 3 or 4 more left. I'm never selling one again for under $320 probably. That card should be a $500 card in my opinion. I'll do what I can to help it go up there. I still have a few cards left. So this one sold at 280. I'm gonna sell the next one at like 320, maybe 350, and then see where it goes. All right, guys, you have a good one. I will talk to you later. Goodbye.